than sort of having to reinvent the wheel each time. And just to show how Wikimedia Commons isn't just a static repository of images, but is a place where engagement is increasingly beginning to happen, a new feature enabled within the last few weeks, I think, enables you to add a note, so you can pick a particular part of an image and add some content to that note to say what that represents.
Perhaps people in the back cannot see it very clearly, so you have to a little bit explain what's to be seen on the screen. We cannot dim the lights here, because then the filmer doesn't have a contrast.
So we have to pray for clouds, maybe. So yes, this screenshot shows you a file on Wikimedia Commons, which is an image from the Tropen Museum archive. And it's a huge mural, and people are now able to leave a comment or leave a note on a specific bit of that image. So like you can do on Flickr, that kind of interactivity, that kind of engagement is now happening on Wikimedia Commons as well. But it's not just about those two sites. The Smithsonian Institution recently published their draft web and new media strategy, and part of that proposed setting up a Smithsonian Commons, inspired by the Creative Commons and Flickr Commons and Wikimedia Commons. And so one of the questions I want to kind of ask is, what role do museums have within this global commons? Is it really appropriate for the Smithsonian to be building a Smithsonian Commons, and for the Science Museum, where I work, to build a Science Museum Commons, or should we be participating in a global commons? And I'll answer that as we go along a little bit. And to some extent, it's not too big a problem if we have lots of different sites, so long as the content can be shared across them. But I think it's an important point about whether we embrace the web as it is, or we try to sort of carve out our own space on it. Here's a page on Wikipedia for Stephenson's rocket, which was the key object in the Science Museum where I used to work, and the most famous exhibit we had. And the Wikipedia page is far more extensive than anything we ever had on our website. And yet we never linked to it. We never used any of the content on our website. And I think that's a shame. And it's not just about reusing the content on the website, but why shouldn't museums engage with the content directly? Why can't we share some of the information that we know about Stephenson's rocket and add to that page, and get the curators involved with contributing to that content? And I think that's a real way that museums can participate as part of the social web, rather than having to do your own thing each time. Project Gutenberg. Has anyone heard of Project Gutenberg? Well, Gutenberg we know as the person who invented the original printing press. But Project Gutenberg takes his name, and is a project set up by a professor in America, but has tens of thousands of volunteers doing a lot of the things that archives do for themselves. They digitize documents and carefully transcribe them. And this is a distributed project, so it's not a few people spending hours and hours and days painfully going through documents and typing up what's in them. But it's lots of people doing a small bit. And this is enabling a huge resource. Project Gutenberg now has a website and a database full of texts for out-of-copyright books in English, in Chinese, in Dutch, in lots of different languages that anyone can access. They are freeing the public domain and contributing these books which have long sat in libraries and have been inaccessible, making them accessible. And they're doing this without any real funding and without being paid particularly. They're doing it as volunteers in their own spare time for the love of the cultural heritage of the cultural archive that exists. And I think that just goes to show the value that archives and cultural heritage institutions have, and that there's an audience out there willing to engage with them. But currently, this is happening completely separately. And it's not just a website. The fact that these books are made available means that other companies can do things like publish iPhone apps. So this is a company has produced an app called Stanza, which allows you to read these public domain books on your iPhone. And this is something we never would have thought sort of likely or possible, that these books that were sat in libraries and archives are now being read by people on their iPhones. And again, it's really popular. There's an audience out there already engaging with this content, reading it on their way to work, and learning about cultural heritage and stories that they wouldn't otherwise have had access to. Here's another site that's recently launched, and it's currently in a closed sort of invitation-only stage because it's still under development. But I've got 4 invitations, so if anyone wants to be invited, come and see me really quickly afterwards. But it's called ThingLink. The website address is thinglink.com, and it aims to do for objects, and more specifically design objects, what sites like Flickr and YouTube have done for photographs and videos. I think this is particularly relevant for design museums and museums that collect contemporary design objects, because here's a community who are documenting and cataloguing contemporary design objects. And not only are they building a kind of factual information about these objects and who the designers were and what country they came from and what year it was produced and so forth, but they're also saying, I own one of these. This is my version of the object.
Frankie, why is ThingLink restricted access only?
Because it's still being tested and developed.
Okay.
So sometime soon they will open it to everyone. But for the time being, it's a private, whilst they're still ironing out bugs and things. So it's still quite new. But as I say, it enables people to not only say, here's the object, which you may see in the design museum or another museum, but also to say, I've got one of these at home. And maybe my one's a little bit different in this way, or here's how I use mine, here's a photograph of mine in my home. And that's a really powerful way for audiences to engage with objects that has never really been possible before. This is audiences saying, not only can I see an object in a museum, but I've got one, and here's what I think about it. So I think that's another really powerful resource that's already out there that museums and cultural institutions can engage with. And it'd be great, for instance, to see the collections of design museums uploaded to the site so that they can see which of the objects they've got. People have got at home as well. I was in Amsterdam 2 months ago for another conference. And this is a group photograph of everyone who came to the conference. And you probably can't see, but I'm hiding at the back somewhere. And the conference was called State of the Map. And these people, by and large, they're all people who are volunteers and community enthusiasts for the project. So the fact that all these people have gathered in Amsterdam, many flying across the world, just goes to show how powerful a community this is. And the community is called OpenStreetMap. And the idea of the community, which was originally founded in the UK, was to provide a street map pretty similar to what Google Maps provides or what Yahoo Maps provide, but without the restrictions of Google Maps. So again, it comes from that kind of open source philosophy of